The shattering sound of my world collapsing wasn't an earthquake, but the revelation of my wife, Eleanor, betraying nearly 2 decades of unwavering trust and devotion in the most intimate way imaginable. I am utterly bewildered, unsure of my next step. The warning signs were there, insidious whispers I now realize, yet I failed to notice them, blinded by affection and a deeply ingrained belief in our bond. I never conceived this could happen to me, especially not with her, Eleanor, my wife and closest confidant for almost 2 decades. She wasn't just my partner. She was the bedrock of my existence, the first person I call with good news, the last I'd speak to before falling asleep. The thought of a life without her, let alone one where she actively deceived me, was beyond comprehension. My job often takes me out of town, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks, and I wasn't due back until this evening. We had planned to embark on a 2-week road trip tomorrow, a long-anticipated journey through national parks and quaint small towns, a chance to reconnect after a particularly hectic summer filled with family obligations and social engagements. Work, however, slowed down unexpectedly, giving me a rare opportunity to return home yesterday afternoon, a full day ahead of schedule. As I pulled into my driveway, a stark red F-150, polished to a gleam, stood out like a beacon of dread. It wasn't ours. My neighbor, Mr. Henderson, a man whose observations rarely missed a beat, had recently inquired about my opinion of the new truck he'd seen in my drive, but I had dismissed it as a misunderstanding, a friendly misidentification. Now, seeing the distinct vehicle, its chrome glinting under the afternoon sun, a terrible premonition seized me, cold and unyielding. I adored my wife and placed absolute, unshakable trust in her, yet that unsettling sensation was undeniably present and potent, a metallic taste of fear in my mouth. My heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I cut the engine of my own truck and sat for a long moment, the silence amplifying the frantic beating of my heart. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to storm the house, to demand answers, but a deeper, more primal instinct took over, a need for undeniable proof. I didn't want to accuse her unjustly, but I also couldn't ignore the icy grip of suspicion. Stealthily, I exited my truck, moving with a quiet precision I didn't know I possessed, approaching the side of the house. I made my way to our bedroom window, the one that overlooked the side garden. It was ajar, letting in the late summer breeze, and as I drew near, the muffled sounds became distinct. Voices, laughter, and then a sound that ripped through me, utterly unmistakable. Peering inside, my gravest fear was not only confirmed but grotesquely magnified. They were there completely unclothed, intertwined on my own bed, in the sacred space where Eleanor and I had shared so much intimacy, so many dreams. The image seared itself into my mind, a permanent scar. I retreated immediately, not making a sound, my mind reeling, my body rigid with shock and a burgeoning, volcanic rage. I stumbled back to my truck, the world suddenly muted, my vision narrowed to a tunnel. I didn't even remember starting the engine, just driving. I've been battling the impulse to do something I know I'd later regret, something that would define me in a way I never wanted. At this juncture, I find myself struggling to care about my own well-being. The initial shock gave way to a searing emptiness, a void where my future, my love, my entire identity used to be. I spent that first night at the family retreat, a rustic cabin nestled deep in the woods, consuming all the alcohol available there, a desperate attempt to drown the images, to numb the excruciating pain that clawed at my insides. Each burning swallow of whiskey only amplified the internal chaos, the replay of that scene flickering behind my eyelids. Today, I was heading home, intending to confront her, to unleash the torrent of anger and agony, but ultimately decided against it. I'm not prepared. All I can feel is immense rage. A red-hot fury that threatens to consume me entirely, and thoughts of aggression consume me. I saw myself grabbing that man, pulling him off her, and I knew I couldn't trust myself. I'm not in a sound state of mind right now, not stable enough to face her without doing something irreversible. I'm back at the lodge now, the familiar scent of pine and stale beer doing little to soothe me, with a large bottle of rum, its amber liquid a mesmerizing, dangerous focus. I've been fixated on it for an hour, the battle between oblivion and responsibility raging within me. I yearn to get intoxicated and erase this from my memory, to simply disappear into a haze until the pain subsides. But I also fear making ill-advised choices while drunk, compounding this catastrophe. I recognize this as a pivotal moment in my life, a crossroads I never imagined I'd face, and my actions in the coming days will undeniably shape my future. That's why I'm here, reaching out. I desperately need assistance. I'm not ready to confide in family or friends. Not yet. The shame, the humiliation, the profound sense of failure are too raw. So, I'm reaching out to strangers in this vast, anonymous world, hoping for a lifeline. The sheer volume of support and guidance I've received is truly astonishing. My phone, once a source of dread with Eleanor's name appearing, has become a conduit for unexpected kindness. I was genuinely moved, almost to tears, realizing how many wonderful individuals exist who are willing to aid a stranger, to offer comfort and advice without judgment. It instills a glimmer of hope for the world, precisely when I needed it most, when my own world felt irrevocably shattered. The only drawback to this outpouring of support is my difficulty in responding to everyone. I have over 600 unread private messages and hundreds of unread comments, each one a testament to human empathy. I intend to thank each person individually, and I will endeavor to do so, though it won't be a swift process. So, I'll begin by extending a massive thank you to all for your kind messages and invaluable counsel. It genuinely means a great deal to me, more than words can express. I've observed several recurring comments and inquiries, and I wish to offer clarification, in addition to this minor update. As you can likely discern, I feel significantly better today. The acute, gut-wrenching pain has almost entirely subsided, replaced by a dull ache, a phantom limb where my happiness used to be. While I still experience a sense of being gut-punched whenever the image flashes unbidden, I have otherwise begun to contemplate the future, to pick up the fragmented pieces and see if they can form a new mosaic. Given that only 2 days have passed, this rapid recovery strikes me as unusual, almost unsettling. Is this the calm before a storm, a temporary reprieve before a deeper emotional onslaught? Or am I merely exceptionally resilient, possessing a strength I never knew I had? Regarding the questions and comments I've received, here are some concise points to elucidate matters. When I mentioned wife and best friend, I was referring to the dual, inseparable roles Eleanor played in my life. She was my confidant, my biggest cheerleader, the one I shared every secret and dream with. This betrayal isn't just of a marriage, but of a profound, intimate friendship. The other individual was neither my closest friend nor someone I knew. I didn't get a clear view of him, just a blur of dark hair and a heavily muscled back. But from the fleeting glimpse and observation of his vehicle, the distinctive red F-150, I don't believe this is an acquaintance. We do not have children, though we had plans, very real plans, to start a family soon. We had even discussed names, decorated a spare room in our minds, and imagined our future selves as parents. That future now feels like ashes. We recently sold our home and were preparing to relocate closer to my workplace in September when the new proprietors take possession. This adds another layer of upheaval to an already chaotic situation, forcing a tangible break from our shared life. I plan to express my gratitude to my neighbor, Mr. Henderson, for his subtle warning, but I'll do so subtly, mirroring his approach with me. Many people have inquired about the signs I alluded to overlooking, the breadcrumbs I now see clearly but dismiss thin. Off the top of my head, here are a few. She was texting at unusually late hours, sometimes past midnight, and always with her phone clutched close, screen down. If I asked who it was, she'd offer a vague, just Brenda or work stuff. She was frequently going out for after-work drinks with companions. This was uncharacteristic of her. Eleanor preferred quiet evenings at home. Yet, I was pleased she was socializing, happy she was branching out, oblivious to the true nature of her outings. She supposedly attended yoga once a week, often coming home refreshed, but never truly limber. Her explanation was that one of her colleagues was the instructor, and Eleanor was purportedly assisting with setup and cleanup, hence the free sessions. I also found her surprisingly inflexible for someone who practiced yoga regularly, a detail I joked about then, but now see as glaring. There were also unknown caller hang-ups. We routinely answer each other's phones if we are closer to it, a habit born of convenience and trust. Several times, an unknown caller would immediately disconnect as soon as I answered, leaving only a click of silence. We receive many spam calls, but typically it's a telemarketer or a debt collector seeking the previous owner of the number. Rarely is it a hang-up that precise, that immediate. I dismiss them all as quirks, as normal marital adjustments, unwilling to see the pattern that was screaming at me. This update is evolving, as is my understanding of the situation. When my brother, David, arrived this morning, he didn't need to say much. He just looked at me, really looked at me, and I felt the dam break a little. We had a substantial, lengthy discussion, hours spent unraveling the knot of pain and confusion. He has always been my true best friend, my confidant since childhood, and in that moment, I realized I must never forget that he will consistently be there for me, without judgment, just as I would be for him. He truly embodies the standard of genuine friendship, even if we occasionally quarrel. Since I was expected home last night, I decided to reply to Eleanor's text message. We're not permitted to have phones on site at work, so it was reasonable for me to only communicate via text, a convenient excuse. She knows it's simple for me to sneak in a few messages from the break room. I messaged her, stating I needed to visit one of my company's remote locations for an urgent inspection and wouldn't be able to call until the end of the weekend, a plausible lie that bought me time. I informed her I would have to cancel all our road trip reservations and rebook later. Within minutes, she suggested she could take her closest friend, Brenda, with her this weekend to the romantic wine country inn I had reserved as a special surprise, her tone just a little too eager. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. I knew it wasn't Brenda she wanted me to believe would be accompanying her. I told her I'd already given the reservation to David and Alice, since it was non-refundable and they would reimburse me within a month. It was a lie, but one that tasted sweet with subtle vengeance. This morning, I canceled all reservations for the road trip except the romantic one, the one at the wine country inn. David was indeed joining me. Fortunately, a quick call to the establishment allowed us to switch from the honeymoon suite to a room with 2 beds, an awkward but necessary adjustment. There also happens to be a lovely lake with boat rentals nearby, a perfect cover for my sudden change of plans. Thus, what was meant to be a romantic getaway with my wife transformed into a much-anticipated fishing trip with my brother, a bizarre but welcome turn of events. This ingenious maneuver means I am free for the weekend, unshackled from the immediate need to engage with her. I don't have to compose messages to her or speak with her for a few days, which alleviates some stress and grants me more time to reflect, to gather my fractured thoughts. My current mindset is leaning heavily towards pursuing a divorce. Frankly, I see no other viable option. The thought of reconciliation, of ever trusting her again, feels like a cruel joke. My brother David supports this, but has urged me to take a few weeks and seek professional counsel to ensure I act from a place of clarity, not just raw emotion. His wife, Alice, a woman of immense practicality and compassion, has a friend who is a couples therapist, Laura, and she is willing to speak with me on Monday. I don't anticipate it altering my decision. The image of her on my bed is too indelible. But at the very least, it might help me untangle some of this complexity to process the grief and anger in a healthier way. I'm also following much of the advice given here and beginning to consult with legal professionals, if only to prepare for what I consider inevitable. I want to handle this appropriately, with dignity and strategy, not out of spite. I never perceived her as someone who would attempt to exploit me, to play dirty in a divorce, but then again, I never expected her to be unfaithful either. So, I believe I need to be ready for any eventuality to protect myself. Thanks again, everyone, for being my anonymous support system. I'm going to try to savor my weekend as much as possible to find a sliver of peace on that lake. A great deal has transpired in the last few days, a blur of emotional upheaval and logistical planning. I'll start with the less critical matters. My brother David and I drove nearly 5 hours to the wine country inn, the air in the truck thick with my unspoken anguish. I truly appreciate his presence and support through this ordeal. He listened patiently, interjecting only when necessary with a supportive word or a practical suggestion. It was more of a cathartic venting session than anything else, a torrent of anger, confusion, and grief pouring out of me, but it genuinely helped clear my head after spending the majority of the drive complaining to him, dissecting every moment, every lie. When we arrived at the charming, rustic inn, I simply desired some quiet solitude, a retreat from the world and my own thoughts, while he, ever the social one, preferred to go out for dinner. I remained in the room, huddled under a blanket, and he went to dine, thoughtfully bringing back some exquisite local fare for me, a perfectly cooked duck confit that I barely tasted. He also managed to arrange a boat rental for the following day, securing a small fishing vessel for us. On Saturday, under a crisp, bright morning sky, we hit the water. The proprietor of the inn, a kind, elderly woman with knowing eyes, was aware of our fishing intentions and was thoughtful enough to pack us a small cooler with provisions and beverages, artisanal cheeses, fresh fruit, crusty bread, and chilled local cider. It was their quiet gesture to make the romantic package more practical for two brothers, a small act of grace that meant a lot. Fishing wasn't particularly fruitful. We both caught a couple of small rainbow trout that we had to release due to their size, their slippery bodies reflecting the sun as they darted away. So the delicious snacks from the inn proved very useful, becoming our main meal. We ceased fishing in the mid-afternoon, the quiet rhythm of the lake a temporary balm to my frayed nerves, and then drove around to all the vineyards and fruit stands, enjoying the picturesque landscape, purchasing food and cases of wine for David's wife, Alice, a gesture of thanks for her role in arranging the therapist. That evening, we sought out the largest tomahawk steak we could find at a local bistro, an almost primal act of consumption that offered a fleeting sense of satisfaction. On Sunday, the weight of returning to reality began to settle in. We drove back to David's residence. He lives in the neighboring community, about an hour from my place, a comfortable buffer. Upon our arrival, Alice was there, her usual warm smile tempered with a hint of concern. We all sat down on their porch swing and uncorked a bottle of chilled white wine we had in the cooler, a silent toast to the weekend's respite. This marked the official conclusion of the weekend for me, the brief illusion of normalcy dissipating. Alice then informed me that while we were away, she had decided, out of a quiet concern for me, to discreetly observe Eleanor. My heart pounded again, a familiar fear. She revealed that the other individual, the man with the F-150, was in my home all Friday night, his truck a constant presence in the driveway, a stark reminder of the invasion. But on Saturday morning, Alice, ever resourceful, managed to arrive just as he was departing. She had discreetly tailed him home and located his apartment building. Eleanor spent Saturday night there, blatantly disregarding my supposed absence, simultaneously sending me saccharine text messages expressing her love and longing. Messages I now knew were steeped in deceit. Alice mentioned that she was dividing her time between visiting family in my town and monitoring Eleanor's activities, a selfless act I can never repay. She stated that she happened to witness Eleanor leaving his apartment on Sunday morning, just hours ago, and captured a few photographs of them embracing and kissing goodbye before Eleanor entered her car. The details were like daggers twisting in my gut. I do not wish to see those images. I don't need the visual proof. The knowledge is enough. That pretty much confirmed my decision. There was no going back. I don't believe I could ever trust her again if she can so effortlessly feign affection and declare love to me while being with another man. Her words a poisoned chalice. Nevertheless, I resolved not to react impulsively based on raw emotion. I needed to maintain composure and rationality if I was to navigate this storm. It was then that Alice informed me Laura, the counselor Alice had arranged an appointment for me with, was coming over for dinner. To clarify, Laura had never met Eleanor, and this was my first encounter with her as well, adding another layer of anxious anticipation. Laura proved to be a very pleasant person, her calm demeanor immediately putting me at ease, and we connected splendidly over a casual dinner. After dinner, Laura and I went for a stroll around David's quiet, tree-lined neighborhood, walking their two energetic dogs and engaging in a private discussion. Laura was immensely helpful in that she was an exceptional listener, offering only gentle prompts and validating nods, and made me feel I didn't need to be guarded, that I could shed the pretense of strength. It was profoundly therapeutic to express my feelings so openly, to the extent I was comfortable to vocalize the shame, the anger, the profound sense of loss. As much as I trust my brother, this was distinct and profoundly necessary. There's a different kind of freedom in confiding in an impartial stranger. It's the very reason I find writing this on Reddit beneficial. It's a cathartic outlet that aids me in untangling some of the turmoil in my mind. Our walk lasted a full hour, the dogs sniffing every bush. Laura's sole substantial advice, delivered with quiet conviction, was not to postpone that conversation with Eleanor. She emphasized that the longer I delayed, the more difficult it would become to address the matter with her, to confront the truth. She said I required clarity above all else at this point, and Eleanor was the only person who could provide that, however painful it might be. Later that night, Alice and David extended an invitation for me to stay with them for as long as needed, a generous offer. I know that David and I have a finite tolerance for being in close quarters, despite our bond. So I spoke to my boss, who, understanding my personal crisis, arranged for me to stay in corporate lodging, a quiet apartment complex the company maintains for traveling employees. I've been staying there every other week for some time, but typically have to leave on my days off. He managed to facilitate my full-time stay for a few months, if necessary, a significant relief. I decided to rebook with Laura for later this week. I believed our walk sufficed for the initial session, a foundational step, and she concurred. I spent Sunday night simply lying in bed in the corporate apartment, the unfamiliar ceiling a blank canvas for my swirling thoughts, contemplating how to approach this confrontation. I wrestled with it because even the hypothetical scenarios in my head provoked intense anger or debilitating sadness. I resolved to simply improvise, to trust my instincts. I'm usually adept under pressure. Yesterday, I awoke, the silence of the corporate apartment amplifying the gravity of the day ahead, and bid farewell to David and Alice over a quick coffee. I drove towards my home, the familiar streets now imbued with a sense of dread, pondering, what if he's there when I arrive? The thought alone made my stomach clench, a knot of nausea and fury. Then I considered that such a sight would likely send me back to the state of uncontrollable fury I was in a few days prior, rendering me incapable of a rational discussion. I decided to do a reconnaissance drive-by first. As I slowly cruised past my house, Neither his distinctive red F-150 nor Eleanor's car was present. A small measure of relief, allowing me to stick to my plan. I entered the house, the air thick with an unspoken wrongness, and gathered a selection of essentials and items I wasn't willing to part with, primarily photographs of my family. Not just Eleanor and me, and cherished family heirlooms, tangible links to my past, things that predated her and would outlast this devastation. I packed them all into my truck with methodical precision and then, driven by an insatiable need for information, headed to the individual's apartment building that Alice had identified. Her car wasn't there either, but his truck was. My heart sank. I decided to message her, a seemingly innocuous text, to inquire about her whereabouts. She replied, almost immediately, that she was getting groceries. My trust in her is so diminished right now that I drove by the supermarket a few blocks away and actually confirmed her presence, watching her from my truck as she pushed a cart. I feel so degraded admitting I did that. The act itself a testament to how completely shattered my faith in her is, but my trust is shattered, and it's the only way I can ascertain anything right now. I messaged her again, a simple, direct instruction. Come home. We need to talk. She responded, what's wrong? Feigning innocence. I merely replied that she needed to be prepared to be truthful, then switched off my phone, cutting off her immediate avenue of communication, asserting a small measure of control. She arrived home 15 minutes later, her expression a mix of bewilderment and feigned concern. As she entered, she approached to embrace and kiss me, a ritual greeting we had performed countless times. I stiffened, turning my head away from her, the warmth of her touch suddenly repellent. Her brow furrowed. She repeated her question about what was amiss, her voice laced with an artificial sweetness. So I told her, my voice flat, devoid of emotion, that she needed to start being honest with me. She feigned ignorance again, claiming she had no idea what I was referring to, her eyes darting away from mine. I stated, all right, if you can't be honest, then I am leaving. Right now. She began to panic at this point, her carefully constructed facade cracking, and asked, are you talking about yoga? A spark of grim satisfaction flickered within me. I considered it a starting point, a thread to pull. I asked her what she was referring to, and she confessed, her voice barely a whisper, that she hadn't been attending yoga at all. Here's a breakdown of the remainder of our conversation, a torturous, drawn-out revelation of partial truths. If you weren't attending yoga, then where were you going? I pressed, my voice calm, almost dangerously so. I was taking walks to relax because I've been so stressed lately. She avoided my gaze. Why are you so stressed, Eleanor? And why did you deceive me about your activities? My patience was wearing thin. Preparing for the move has been stressing me out, and I just didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to burden you. It was an excuse, hollow and transparent. So, fabricating a lie was the decision you made? What was your apprehension about telling me you were going for a walk to de-stress? Was it that hard to just say, I need some quiet time? I didn't intend to lie. I was concerned that my stress would exacerbate yours, but I'm not stressed. Her words contradicted themselves, her anxiety palpable. It truly appears you're not disclosing everything, I stated, my eyes fixed on hers, trying to pierce through her defenses. What do you mean? She blinked innocently. I suspect you're being untruthful about more than just skipping yoga. I'm asking you again, Eleanor, to be forthright. You've already deceived me, so this can't work if you persist in lying. I need the full truth now. She hesitated, then, oh, are you referring to last weekend when I went for drinks with some companions and returned home late? I had a feeling that bothered you. The casualness of her tone was infuriating. I had no clue she went for drinks or was out late. I was working a couple of hours away, completely unaware. Is that what you genuinely did that night, Eleanor? Or was that a fabrication as well? Who were these companions? I went for drinks that night, but I didn't see Brenda, who she supposedly was with that night. Who did you see then, if not Brenda? Who were these companions? No one. I just drank alone. Her voice was barely audible. You drink alone now, Eleanor? That's a new development. My voice was rising now, incredulous. Yeah, maybe I have a problem. A half-hearted attempt at deflection, at gaining sympathy. Perhaps we'll discuss that later, if there is a later. Last chance, Eleanor. Be honest, or I'm departing, and this conversation is over. I don't know what else to say. I've told you everything. She wrung her hands. Okay, I'm leaving. At this point, I rose and departed, the decision made. Usually, when we argue, I go for a drive to distance myself from her, to cool down. She likely thought this was the same, a temporary retreat. Then, as I backed my truck out of the driveway, she realized I had also taken my clothes, my toiletries, and even my gaming console, clear signs of a more permanent departure. That's when her phone began to incessantly ring mine, a frantic, desperate symphony. I answer on the 10th call, my voice cold and steady. I told her I had given her an opportunity to be truthful, and she failed. She chose to continue the lies, so there was nothing left to discuss. She pleaded and implored me to return home to address this in person, her voice cracking with manufactured distress. She claimed she had no idea why I was so upset or what I believed she had done. She reiterated that she loved me and would never harm me. Words that once brought comfort now twisted into pure agony. Just hearing her utter those words, knowing the depth of her deceit, truly ripped a fresh wound in my chest. They were always comforting words that I accepted without question, a bedrock of our relationship. Now it's a blunt, jagged blade sawing through my heart in the most agonizing way. I couldn't bear it, so I ended the call. She called back approximately 40 times before I was ready to answer again. Her persistence a testament to her desperation, or perhaps her manipulative resolve. This time she asked, her voice raspy from crying, "Did you speak to Brenda, her closest friend?" The question hung in the air, a final desperate gambit. I inquired why, my voice still devoid of emotion, and she responded, "Come home. Please, I don't want to discuss this over the phone. I'll tell you everything." The promise of everything was enough. I assented and drove around a little longer, taking the scenic route to calm myself down, to prepare for the inevitable. Then I returned home. She was waiting for me at the door, her face blotchy, eyes red. That conversation proceeded as follows. "I presume you spoke to Brenda," she said, her voice barely a whisper, avoiding my eyes. I remained silent, allowing the weight of my silence to press down on her. "Well, a few weeks ago, while you were at work, we went for drinks. A couple of men began purchasing drinks for us, so we just went along with it. As we were departing, one of the men attempted to kiss me. I immediately recoiled and informed him I was married. I felt terrible about it. I wanted to tell you, but I was foolish and simply chose to conceal it from you. Brenda connected with the other man and provided him my number without my permission. He has messaged me a few times since, but I have never replied. It was a plausible story, almost convincing, but a flicker of doubt remained. Can I see your phone?" I asked, extending my hand. "Yes." She presented her phone, its screen surprisingly dim. I scrolled through, my jaw tightening as I saw it was completely devoid of texts except for those for myself and her mother. She never deletes her texts. Her phone is usually a chaotic archive of conversations, so this immediate, deliberate cleanse was novel, a blatant red flag. I examined her photos, which were also conspicuously cleansed, but then I remembered a trick I'd seen online and checked the recently deleted album. There, among a few blurry selfies, I discovered one a man I didn't recognize, his face clear, almost smiling. My blood ran cold. "Who is this?" I demanded, holding the phone up. "That's the man who attempted to kiss me," she mumbled, looking away. "Why did you photograph him, Eleanor? Why would you keep a picture of someone who made you feel terrible?" "I was just being idiotic. It was a mistake." Her voice was pleading. "That's not a valid reason. Why did you photograph him?" I pressed, my voice rising, the anger simmering beneath my controlled exterior. "I don't know," she finally cried out, her voice cracking. "Is that all you wish to disclose, Eleanor, or is there more? Is this still just a trickle of truth? That's all I can recall right now. Please don't leave." Once again, I departed. I refused to be subjected to such trickled truth, to be fed lies spoonful by agonizing spoonful. I got into my truck and drove away, the roar of the engine a desperate attempt to drown out her lies. She rushed outside, attempting to impede me, her hands reaching for the door handle, but I was already out of reach, leaving her standing alone in the driveway. I drove to a tranquil green space nearby, a secluded park I knew, and simply sat on my tailgate, eating my lunch, trying to determine my next course of action, my mind a chaotic whirlwind. While sitting there, the crisp air doing little to clear my head, I began recalling other incidents I should have been more vigilant about, moments that now clicked into place with chilling clarity, revealing a pattern I had willfully ignored. Things like, I was working a weekend shift, a particularly long one, and she was supposedly in bed early. Eleanor went out to a club with a few of her female companions. I woke up at 4 a.m., the house eerily silent, and she still wasn't home. My gut tightened. I called her a few times, but there was no answer, only the ringing in my ear amplifying my growing anxiety. Approximately 30 minutes later, she called me back, her voice slurring slightly, and asked if I would come pick her up. When I collected her from a dimly lit street corner, she recounted, with a rapid-fire explanation, that they were attempting to hail a taxi, but had no success. A couple of men whom her friend knew stopped and offered them a ride, but wanted to stop at their place first. When they arrived at the men's dwelling, her married friend, a woman Eleanor had often criticized for her promiscuity, immediately entered a back room with one of the guys. Eleanor claimed she spent some time searching for her, calling out her name, but then eventually gave up and simply had a drink in the kitchen with the roommates while she waited. She asserted she didn't hear her phone when I tried calling. We argued about this for hours. She expressed disgust at her friend's behavior, vehemently denouncing it, and consequently cut that friend out of her life. I, ever the trusting husband, assumed that chapter was closed, a lesson learned. Another occasion, she journeyed to visit a close friend in a different city, a 5-hour drive away. It was a planned girls' night, for women all getting intoxicated and watching movies in their pajamas. At least that's what I was informed, what I chose to believe. Then she called me around 1 a.m. to say goodnight, her voice cheerful, slightly tipsy. We conversed for about 20 minutes, and she repeatedly told me they were having a fantastic girls' night, full of laughter and gossip. Then, distinct and unmistakably male, I heard a voice in the background, a low rumble. My heart stopped. I inquired who it was, and she initially denied hearing anything, pretending the line was breaking up. Then it occurred again, louder, a distinct male laugh. She couldn't refute it, so she mumbled, "Oh yeah, friend's name, brought a couple guys with her. Everyone here is absolutely furious about it. We're going to kick them out soon." She was inebriated and 3 hours away. She left me no alternative but to trust her again, to accept her flimsy explanation. We argued about that too, why she refused to disclose their presence, why she put herself in such a situation. She vowed never to place herself in that kind of compromising situation again. Clearly, that promise did not endure. After recalling all those incidents, each a dismissed red flag, and our previous discussions about them, my resolve hardened. I was prepared to give this one final attempt, one last opportunity for her to reveal the full, unvarnished truth. I reactivated my phone, and almost immediately it rang. I answered, and she was screaming for me to return home, her voice shrill with panic. I drove back to the house, the short drive feeling like an eternity. I walked inside and was instantly confronted by her, Eleanor, my wife, weeping profusely, her face a mask of desperation. She was seated on the sofa, rocking back and forth uncontrollably, repeatedly uttering, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." My anger was cold, precise. I asked her, "Sorry for what, Eleanor? Tell me what you're sorry for." It took her a good 5 minutes to compose herself enough to speak. The only sounds are ragged breaths and muffled sobs. "I lied about the man who attempted to kiss me," she finally whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "Okay, Eleanor, tell me what occurred. No more partial truths. No more lies." My voice was calm, but the undercurrent of steel was unmistakable. The four of us actually returned to his residence that night. We fooled around. She hesitated, her eyes pleading for me to stop, to not make her say it. I knew it was more than just fooling around, but simply hearing her say it, the euphemism failing to mask the raw truth, made me feel disoriented. The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in, and a million voices, her lies, my doubts, his laughter, clamored in my ears simultaneously. I think I was experiencing a panic attack, my breathing shallow, my vision blurring. I stumbled to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face and neck until things normalized, until the world stopped spinning. I returned, forcing myself to look at her. "What exactly did you do, Eleanor? I need specifics. I need the full, ugly truth." "Do you truly wish for me to tell you?" she asked, her voice a thin thread. "Yes. All right, we'll omit the graphic specifics, but it was severe. It was more than just kissing." She looked away, as if unable to bear my gaze. "Was that all? Was that the entire truth now, Eleanor? Because if it's not, I'm not continuing the charade any longer. You either tell me everything right now, every single detail, or this will be the last time we ever communicate. Do you understand?" She began weeping profusely again, a fresh wave of tears, her body shaking uncontrollably. It took another few minutes before she could speak, her words punctuated by ragged breaths. No, it wasn't all. We met up again and had sexual relations. I'm so profoundly sorry. I love you and will do anything to atone for this. Please don't leave me. Just that one time, Eleanor, is that the whole truth?" I pressed, relentless. "If I reveal the truth, please grant me an opportunity to do whatever I can to compensate for it. Please," she begged, clutching her hands to her chest. "I'll consider it. Now, was it just that one time?" Her eyes darted around the room, desperate, then finally met mine, filled with a raw, agonizing confession. "No, it was an affair. We had been engaging in sexual activity while you were out of town for work. It has been ongoing for almost a month now. He is married, and they are on the verge of divorce," he told me. My world, which I thought had already shattered, now splintered into a million tinier, sharper fragments. "Does he know you're married, Eleanor?" My voice was barely a whisper, cold with disbelief. "Yes. If he's having an affair because his marriage is failing, does that imply you believe ours is failing? Is that what you communicated to him? Is that why you did this?" No, I don't think ours is failing. I'm so foolish. I despise myself. Please don't abandon me. I can rectify this. I swear." "Ow, Eleanor, how can you rectify this?" "Tell me, whatever you desire. Anything you ask. If you were in my position, or even his wife's position, what would resolve this for you? What would make you feel any sense of closure, any justice?" She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Knowing the truth. Being able to trust you to genuinely mean what you're saying. Being truly honest. You could trust me, Eleanor. I'm being honest right now. I made a grave error and won't repeat it. But if you were his wife, Eleanor, wouldn't you want to know the truth? Wouldn't you want to know what her husband has done?" She choked back a sob. Yes, I would." "Then rectify this. You said you would do anything. Call her. Now, tell her everything." Her eyes widened in horror. "You want me to call her? If you believe that's what you would want, then yes. Do it." She attempted to call, her hands shaking so violently she almost dropped the phone, but received no answer, only a voicemail prompt. A few minutes later, her cell phone rang. It was listed as Brenda Work. She looked startled, a flicker of panic in her eyes, so I knew that wasn't Brenda. I asked if it was him, and she confirmed it was. I answered, my voice firm and clear, not giving him a chance to speak. Being the coward he is, he mumbled, "Oops, I must have the wrong number." I retorted, my voice cutting through his feeble attempt at evasion. "No, this is the husband of the woman you've been having an affair with. The one who is very much still married. I'm going to let you speak to her because she has something to say to you." I passed the phone to her, my hand steady. Eleanor, through fresh tears, I told him everything. He knows the entire truth. We're finished. It was just a brief encounter, and now you must never contact me again. The lie of brief encounter was for his benefit, not mine. I requested to see the phone before she hung up. "What divorce lawyer are you using?" I asked, looking him squarely in the eye through the phone screen. "I'm not getting divorced," he stammered, caught off guard. "Oh, but didn't you inform my wife you were? That your marriage was crumbling?" I raised an eyebrow, a cold smirk playing on my lips. "No, I didn't." "Okay then, may I speak to your wife? I feel she has as much right to know about this as I do. Perhaps more." "Please, man, I didn't know she was married. Don't ruin my marriage over a mistake. It was just a stupid fling." His voice was a desperate whine. "You ruined mine over a mistake. It's only fair that I inform your wife. After all, she deserves the truth, doesn't she?" "Please don't. She's at work right now. I'll tell her everything when she gets home. I swear, I will." He pleaded, his voice thick with fear. "Okay, you do that. Don't waste your time. I'll be calling her anyway." That's where I ended the call, a grim satisfaction settling in my chest. I then asked Eleanor if she knew where his wife worked and her name. She did, her voice barely audible. I had Eleanor call over and ask for her at work. She managed to get her on the phone, and I told Eleanor to put it on speaker and take a seat. This woman, his wife, stated she was just preparing to depart for the day and would call Eleanor back from her car in a few minutes. She did. His wife. "What's going on? Who is this?" Her voice was crisp, professional. "Eleanor," her voice trembling, "I have something terrible to tell you, and I don't want to cause any accidents. Please don't drive right now. Pull over if you can." Oh my God, did something happen to his name? The worry in her voice was palpable. "No, no, he's at your apartment right now. I'm just letting you know that we have been having an affair for a month now. I'm coming clean to my husband right now, and I thought you should be afforded the same respect, the same truth." She fell silent for about a minute, the only sound a low static. Then her voice, colder than ice, brittle with shock, said, "If this is some sick joke, I will uncover who you are, and you will regret it." Then she terminated the call. Not even 10 minutes later, Eleanor received a text from Brenda Work stating, "Thanks. You just ruined my life. I hope you're happy." I seized the phone and replied, my fingers flying across the screen, the culmination of my righteous anger exploding. "You just ruined 4 lives and 2 marriages, you despicable human being. Don't forget that this was your fault, you selfish individual." For the next hour, Eleanor pleaded and implored me to remain with her, a desperate litany of apologies and promises. She proposed couples counseling, pledged never to leave my side, swore eternal fidelity, and even offered sexual favors, her voice husky, a desperate bargaining chip. This was precisely what I anticipated, thanks to the insights gleaned from comments here. A predictable playbook of a caught cheater. She then suggested we proceed with that road trip vacation, her treat, citing a desperate need for time away, for us to reconnect. Her reasoning was, "We need to spend some quality time together because my work schedule has been pushing us apart lately." Also, precisely what I expected her to say, a fabricated narrative to justify her actions. She wasn't expecting me to reveal that I had already gone on a trip, a version of our planned getaway, with my brother. She also wasn't expecting me to tell her that I had already arranged counseling for myself, that I was actively seeking help. She most certainly wasn't expecting me to inform her that I had discovered her infidelity on my very own bed, the raw, brutal truth. And I could only imagine she didn't anticipate me already having a place lined up to stay, a safe harbor away from her. When I disclosed all of that, each revelation like a physical blow, she collapsed to the floor, weeping uncontrollably, her body racked with sobs. She began uttering how she didn't deserve to live, how she was a monster. She told me I should just end her life right now because she's too awful to be with anyone. Her words a chilling echo of his own suicidal threat. It continued like that for a while, a harrowing display of self-pity and manipulative despair. I remained for a total of 4 hours, listening to her offer excuse after excuse, then attempt to embrace me or cuddle me, or even perform sexual favors if I would just stay and work through this with her desperation growing with each failed attempt. In the end, when her sobs finally quieted into ragged breathing, I contacted Brenda, her real closest friend, the one she had allegedly gone to yoga with. I calmly informed Brenda that her friend, Eleanor, was experiencing severe emotional distress and suicidal thoughts, and that she should come monitor her, that I was leaving. Then I departed, the silence of the night a welcome relief. Almost a full day has passed since that occurred, and I haven't communicated with her since. She has been calling and texting me incessantly all day, a constant buzzing against my resolve. Her friends and family have also been calling and texting me relentlessly all day, each offering a different excuse for her behavior or a distinct plea for empathy on her behalf. Her father was the sole person who messaged me, a brief, heartfelt text stating that I needed to prioritize my own well-being and that he would always cherish me like a son, regardless of what transpired between his daughter and me. Reading that was what finally allowed me to shed tears for the first time since this whole ordeal began, a torrent of grief and relief that I hadn't realized I was holding back. I have a meeting with Laura, my counselor, tomorrow, and a lawyer on Thursday. I believe you understand where this is heading. But until it materializes, until the legal papers are signed, I'm simply uncertain about anything, navigating this fog of pain one step at a time. This past week proved highly eventful, a whirlwind of emotional processing and practical steps towards a new future. I've been oscillating between the remote work site, where the routine offers a welcome distraction, and my brother David's place, a sanctuary of unwavering support. I'm striving to be as little a burden on them as possible, so I only stay on nights when I have an early appointment that makes the commute from the remote site impractical. My company, understanding the gravity of my personal situation, has generously allowed me to take a few weeks of personal time, which has been an immense help, giving me the space I need without the added pressure of demanding work hours. I've continued my sessions with Laura, the therapist. I met with her a total of 3 times now. Each session brings a little more clarity, a little more peace. Personally, I find myself in a better mental state than I was last week, the raw edges of pain slowly dulling. So while I don't truly believe our visits are exceptionally productive in terms of radical breakthroughs, I do think it's a valuable opportunity to organize the tumultuous thoughts circulating in my mind, to process the grief and anger in a structured way. For that reason, I will continue attending for now. I consulted with a lawyer last Thursday, a grim but necessary step. Following their guidance, I compiled a comprehensive list of all our assets and liabilities, including debts, a painful inventory of a life once shared. Subsequently, I visited the bank and requested a freeze on our joint accounts, which now requires both parties to be present for any withdrawals. Since we both have our salaries deposited into our individual accounts, this measure won't prevent either of us from accessing new funds, only the existing and shared money, protecting my interests. The lawyer did advise me not to confront her until I served her with the legal documents, to prevent her from emptying accounts or destroying assets, but it was already too late for that, the confrontation having already taken place. Throughout the week, I received nearly constant calls and texts from Eleanor, her family, and her friends. Each call was a fresh wound, a new wave of excuses or pleas for forgiveness, all of which I now recognized as attempts to manipulate. This past weekend, my sister-in-law Alice, with her usual thoughtfulness, organized a family gathering at the lodge, the same retreat where I had first tried to drown my sorrows. I attended, bracing myself, and had to deliver the shocking news to my wider family, my parents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. It was incredibly difficult, seeing their faces contort from disbelief to sadness, then anger. But at least it's now out in the open, and I can include them in my recovery process, leaning on their love and support. The secret, the shame, no longer weighed solely on me. Things were progressing as favorably as could be anticipated until Saturday night, around 8 p.m. I was sitting around the flickering campfire with my brother David and my father, the familiar scent of wood smoke comforting, when Eleanor's car, that familiar dark sedan, pulled up into the driveway, its headlights cutting through the darkness. My stomach dropped. David, seeing my reaction, immediately informed me he would handle it, stepping forward with a determined set to his jaw. My father and I opted to take a walk around the property, out of sight from the driveway, trying to avoid a public scene. We had barely entered the thick forest when I could hear Eleanor screaming at David to get out of her way, her voice sharp and enraged. She had a couple of friends with her, women I vaguely recognized from social events, and they were also yelling at David, telling him to mind his own affairs, to stop interfering. He made a commendable effort, standing firm, trying to reason with them, but ultimately, they were too overwhelming for him to manage. She got past him, a blur of motion, and rushed directly towards us. She must have seen his head pointed that way, a compass pointing to my hiding spot. My father offered to deal with her, his voice low and protective, but I stated I would handle her, surprising even myself with my sudden calm. I needed to do this, to face her one last time. Eleanor came running over to me, weeping profusely, her face streaked with tears and dirt, looking utterly devastated. She immediately reached for a hug, her arms flailing, and I didn't stop her, allowing her to press herself against me. But I didn't embrace her back, my arms remaining stiff at my sides. It was a stark physical manifestation of the emotional chasm between us. She implored me to just speak with her, to hear her out. I agreed, my voice flat, and we walked along the property trails away from the cabin to ensure a measure of privacy. Eleanor, her voice a ragged whisper, revealed that the other individual's wife has left him, the fallout of our phone call rippling outwards. She recounted that he called Eleanor, threatening to end his life, and, in a fit of desperate self-preservation, attributed all blame to her, painting her as the sole destroyer of his life. She claimed she told him to just do it, her voice devoid of empathy, a chilling revelation of her callousness, and hasn't communicated with him since. Eleanor then produced a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket and began enumerating ways she promised to compensate me, to win me back. Again, these were all the same things she had offered on the first day. Everything from couples counseling to desperate sexual requests, a recycled script. Then, she caught me completely off guard. She stated she no longer wished to continue living this way, in this constant state of anxiety and deceit. She said she wanted us both to resign from our jobs, to pack up our lives and move abroad, to establish that small, rustic beach bar we had always envisioned, a dream we had shared since our honeymoon. She claimed she would depart immediately if I would accompany her, abandoning everything for a fresh start with me. To put this into perspective, over the past week, while trying to imagine my life post-divorce, this was the only scenario I could conceive that brought me any comfort, a complete reset of everything, a radical departure. Since I'm already undergoing a massive transformation, shedding my old life, I reasoned that another element, a dramatic change of scenery and purpose, might as well be included, and I could just pursue exactly what I desired, unburdened by the past. Hearing her express the exact same aspiration, our shared dream, momentarily pulled me back into that feeling of missing her, of the person I thought she was, and wanted to be with her, to cling to the familiarity of our shared vision. That was the instant I knew I had to terminate the discussion. That fleeting pull, that momentary weakness was dangerous. She was trying to recreate the past, to paper over the betrayal with a fantasy. I escorted her back to her car, where her friends were waiting, watching us with curiosity. I told her I would be willing to speak on the phone, but couldn't promise anything beyond that she needed to respect my space. This sufficiently calmed her for her to leave, her friends ushering her away. We've spoken on the phone each night since, short, strained conversations, but the content is invariably the same. She weeps and pleads for another chance, a broken record of remorse, her voice filled with a desperate longing. I, in turn, grow angry at her actions, at the depth of her deception, and eventually terminate the call, unable to bear the weight of her pleas. I'm currently struggling immensely with missing her, not the betrayer, but the best friend I lost. She was my closest friend for decades, my daily confidant, the person who knew me better than anyone. So losing that intimate person to confide in, that safe harbor, is incredibly difficult. Realizing that all the aspirations and plans we shared, the future we meticulously built together, have simply been discarded, thrown away by her choices, is devastating. The dream of that beach bar, of starting a family, of growing old together, feels like a cruel joke now. I desire nothing more than to pack up and commence life anew somewhere else. Anywhere but here, to escape the ghosts of our past. I yearn for that, to be with her, with the woman I thought I married, but she ruined it. She deprived me of that future, of that possibility, and for that, I don't know if I can ever forgive her.